Hey, Ryan, it's really a pleasure to have you. Um, I know you from one of our favorite sort of podcasts, Ask the Inspector, and so on. And I've chatted with you a couple of times, and I
Yeah.
detected such a good voice and from the heart and a real person, which I do appreciate. That, especially nowadays, it's really hard to find solid people. Um, One thing that we were talking about that really sparked an interest is your passion to what America is about, and how it sounded like you know so much, and you quoted a few things. Um, but aside from just me knowing that you're a network engineer or a network specialist expert, uh, do you have anything that you would want to introduce about yourself?
Well, I actually just going back to what you said a minute ago about being real and so forth as a real person as opposed to just some different personality, maybe on screen versus off screen.
That's not true.
It's not true, and it takes a tremendous amount of emotional energy to even do the very small number of shows I've done, and working with our friend Scott Ritter has um, it's made me always reflect, and I tend to be a very self critical person already. So the challenge is always to perfect and to think. So even when I say something that I think I believe, I always find myself having to go back and fact check myself because I do have a worldview. And to say that I think people do have a worldview. If somebody is just out there trying to live their life, their view is, I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want anyone to bother me. I want to have a good life, and I know that on some level, other people need to have a good life, whatever that is, so that I can have a good life. That's a worldview. Um, there is also that worldview. I'm going to seek power. Simple, but very specific kind of worldview. Um, then you have people who have a quote unquote left view, a right view, all these different things. In my case, as I started off as a young person who, I went to conservative schools. I had a very conservative, evangelical upbringing, actually. And I always thought that I lived in the greatest country, and that I also that there was a purpose in my life. So I still believe that I have a purpose, and I still think that there is great good to my country. However, when I was 17, I also had the opportunity to travel to the Soviet Union before it was completely gone. And so what I learned is that the big opponent, enemy of the United States, certainly that I had been raised even up to that point to believe was our enemy, was very different than what I had expected or anticipated from all of my extensive studies of accelerated history up to that point, because I took every history class that I could. That immediately reality came up against certain aspects of what I thought were real. And in fact, what I saw was that despite horrible suffering and trauma that people were living through in the collapse of the Soviet Union, that there was this immediate love of fellow man, not hospitality, but people. I mean, I stayed with people who worked for months to get enough money to feed us a very nice meal, and we would see clearly a powerful country with a great history really on its back. And that was the first major change in my thinking about the world outside of my skin and the relatively protected bubble. I did spend about 30 years almost working for an intelligence journal. My mother ran for Congress, and I worked with her campaign back in the mid-1990s. And I paid very close attention from that point on to the short 200-plus year history of the United States as it related to Russia. And so really that's colored my entire thinking.
Yeah, in general, I mean, I feel like we're all victims to our exposure to whatever narratives and whatever is being shown. And of course, from person to person, how we see things, we have nuances and all that. So, of course, we all have our different way of seeing things. And of course, that can be manipulated with narratives and all that. But we also, all of us have some blind spots of a sort, because we're not taught by non-biased world. We're indoctrinated into whatever.
And so here's the thing. I learned that actually the United States was much better at certain points than I thought it was. It wasn't really, I was a big fan of Ronald Reagan. It wasn't really Ronald Reagan. It was, it's interesting because there was a certain fight, and I would say there's a thread in our history. When you read the Declaration of Independence, when you read the U.S. Constitution, when you read the arguments that somebody like Alexander Hamilton waged on behalf of this idea that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. It didn't say life, liberty, and property, which is typically it's very early on what we are taught in American education in particular, this John Locke idea of property, or the Aristotelian idea that property is, and property, what was property in Aristotle? Well, largely it was your slave count. That was your property.
All right.
Well, you know what? If they had wanted that notion to be embedded in our founding documents, they certainly would have said it. And there were fights early on. Now, were we perfect? Did we get rid of slavery right away? Well, nobody on the planet had, actually. And so it's that fight for a higher principle that with all of their problems our founding fathers had, that they said, we're going to go for the highest principle, and then we're going to fight this idea of a more perfect union. Not a perfect union, but everything is towards a more perfect union. So why is that important? Well, because today, right, the United States is almost unrecognizable in the sense of what those founding fathers had in mind. And later, even Abraham Lincoln, what he had in mind. And after him, you could say certain aspects of McKinley, Franklin Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X even. He made a transformation about his concept of the United States. And so that's the whole point. There is the whole thing about the United States is there's a fight towards perfection. And actually, Russia, at certain times, China, Mexico, many other countries, they saw that spark. And that's what they liked about the United States. They said, okay, that's worth fighting for, because they're not white American, they're universal principles. So that's the important thing in my mind. This is where my perspective has improved. It's not really, is the United States per se, all good or all bad. The issue is that there are principles that we adopted, which you can go read in other countries' constitutions, and you can see that the fight, I've been doing some reading on Chiang Kai-shek. I've been doing some reading on Ho Chi Minh, for example. Various people throughout history in other countries call themselves, something other than conservative American, they had the same idea. So my life has been, let me go and find those common universal ideas in other cultures and show them to Americans and say, see, these people think the same way that our founding fathers thought, and they're fighting for it. You should support that, or we should bring that back here, and we should embrace it. And that's the whole point of, I guess, really how you and I sort of came together. That's what I find so interesting about some of the other work that we have done with Scott Ritter and my trips to Russia subsequently this year and 2 years ago. And everything that I see during the special military operation is, and in fact, I just spoke today. I met a Texan who lives in, I'm a Texan. I live here just north of Austin. And I've now met, 6 or 7 Texans in the last week, all who live in Russia. And kind of mind-blowing. Mind-blowing to me. I was like, that's funny. And this guy said, hey, look, right now, President Putin seems to be the president who's actually fighting for the entire world. And I can't say he's wrong. I can't say he's wrong. I think it is right. I think it's true.
Absolutely.
So there you have it.
I think regardless, it seems like we always need a balance. If there's no balance, we go berserk and we start abusing. I mean, you said like we the part of the American heritage is all men are created equal. It doesn't say except for the brown ones and the this ones and the that ones. And but that's our actions say that so loudly. It's you can't deny it, you can't ignore it, you can't act like it's not there. I hate to say it, but racism is a but it could be, it's not necessarily color, but if you're from a different tribe, it's just your life doesn't matter. Where it goes against the initial belief, the basis of the American, history is like we're all created equal. And that's what we're shooting for. We if we act differently, it's because we're not quite there. But that doesn't negate that there is such a thing that we need to achieve, and that is improving ourselves.
Absolutely, that's right. That's the whole idea. So, and I think the core of that improving ourselves is that you can look at a child, and a child when they leave the purblind state and they begin to discover the world around them, they don't immediately say, "Oh no, I'm not interested." In fact, it's the opposite. They're interested in everything. They want to know why. And that's when they start getting more conscious, they want to know, why does everything happen? And it's that desire not to explain, but to ask why. That is what is universal about human beings, regardless of where they come from. The why can be many different kinds of whys, but the why from a child is nonstop. If you have children, they will keep going, and parents sometimes forget. But that element, to me, is the universal human element that we have to keep going. Because if you ask why, I forget actually where I read it, but the idea is if you say that you know something, that person is going to be asked until they don't know. But if you say you don't know, and you take the learned ignorance approach, then you say that person can be taught until they do know. And that's the whole idea. We need to get people to be open to know, right? To learn.
Yeah, true. Children are a great example. Of course, there are two sides of things in regard to children. There's the knowing part, which is really admirable, but there's also the emotional side that with time it needs a little maturity, because as children, we want everything our way. I want it this way. Until you learn, it's not all about you. There are other people.
Well, that's a little later.
How do you feel if somebody else does this, whatever?
Yes.
But there are so many nuances and different, balances with all this stuff. I listened to your previous podcast from today. Yeah, and I agree with you about that Trump thing. That a lot of people is just very dead wrong. But I think he has a point in regard to that interview that I already forgot her name.
Morgan.
No, the giggly one. No, the elected for president. Harrison, Kamala.
Kamala Harrison. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if the news agency shuffles the answers and answer the wrong thing, we've had enough of that. And I'm surprised your guest Jeff didn't. What you mentioned is the Trump, the acronyms for the people who can't stand him. Syndrome.
The Trump derangements and
That's right. It just blinds everything.
DTS, Donald Trump syndrome.
Yeah. But I agree. It's we all of us had enough of lies, and I think anybody who lies should be punished somehow, and we should not. It should be not in you shouldn't be able to feel like, oh yeah, we can get away with it by doing this or whatever, and that goes for presidents too. I mean, how do you feel about that? That all this the system is based on politicians who give promises, and there is no really way to make them accountable for what they say. It's just outrageous.
Yes, and the problem is that when the quality of the population declines, when the voter base, will say, doesn't know the history, their own history, the history of other nations, when they lose a certain scientific approach to knowing. So there's a great science of epistemology, which is the science of knowing. How do you know that what you know is true, right? So can you look over your own shoulder and analyze yourself clinically and say, hey, wait, I'm going in the wrong direction or the right direction? So if you debase the population, then you're going to get lower and lower quality politicians. So
yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that people get away with lies knowingly it's lies.
No. I mean, agree. I'm saying that's the first part of it.
Long time ago in the States, I remember it's like, oh yeah, you can sue anybody for like false advertising.
Yeah,
it's beyond false advertising. I mean, it's criminal. Yeah. And it's the account. We're counting on people not knowing, so therefore they'll take it face value. Well, when that face value is proven to be wrong, then if there is, regardless if people are smart or not, I can be dumb as whatever. I don't have to know about everything. When I go to the doctor, I'm trusting that doctor with my life, but with the medicine he gives or whatever, or she gives. But, of course, now I don't. It's like it was a big eye opener that like you said, you need to be smart. You need to know what you know is true, because basically whoever we trusted, because I know you're a specialist in what you do, and if I talk to you about packets and all that, you'll be able to tell me about headers and trailers and all kind of things, and advise me from a technical point of view. But you want to count on somebody else who would know what they're doing and count on that. So we can't know it all. I mean, there is.
That's right.
That's why we have doctors. But that doctors is for people who, to me, is for people who don't know how to deal with their problem, and they need somebody who knows, then they go there. Versus, you shouldn't deal with your problem at all and just get somebody from out there. Always be dependent on that person to tell you what is wrong with you, even though there is nothing wrong with you, for example.
Yeah, you know, and our leaders get away with things. My point is that the citizen population has to be, they have to put themselves in the position of the elected person, as opposed to being a cheerleader. You know, that's the one benefit I had of when I was not yet 20, when my mother ran for Congress in Arizona. She won the primary she joined the opposition party to the candidate in power, ran against him. So it was like we switched parties just for her campaign. And she won the primary, the first round of the election. And then I think after the campaign, maybe it was the following year, she then found herself traveling to the subcontinent to Sudan, actually, with a group of elected officials on a fact-finding mission before the Civil War split the country in half. And so, again, I have plenty of fire and brimstone for politicians, absolutely. But my thing is that while those politicians have to have their feet held to the fire, we also have to make our fellow human beings better. So to me, there's no point in the case of our previous guest going on a wild rant, for example, against Donald Trump because of the stupid things he does, if you don't say, Mr. President, this is the thing you should be doing. In other words,
bring the solution.
You have to always take any correction, like a parent would do with their child, is followed up or should be followed up with a solution. You have to give them a way out to do what's right. If they keep doing what's wrong, then you keep bringing the heat. But if the population doesn't know what's right, then what ends up happening is you get this devolution. So you get the right wing and the left wing attack each other. You're a Nazi, no, you're a Nazi. Everybody's a Nazi, or everybody's a communist. Everybody's bad. Nobody's good. And my position is the right one, but I can't even articulate my position. All I know is I'm against you.
Mm-hmm.
This is the breakdown of society.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was watching the Putin's election, and even when he talks about the war, it's about what you're doing. You know, it's not about the land. It's about the people. And with the election, it's the different parties is what they're doing for Russia, not what Putin is doing wrong, but what with and here it's like you said, a cheerleader for basically a team. You know, it doesn't matter how lousy the team is. You're for that team. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I mean, it affects everything in our lives, and it's all about the team. I mean, at some point, I'm sure you do the same like me. I'm sure everybody does the same, where you have like a lot of nuances come to mind. One of the things I used to think is if you're in a communist world being led by good leaders, it probably would work. If you are in a capitalistic world with good leaders, it can probably will work well. But either one being run by bad leaders, it's not going to matter. Communist, socialist, capitalist, liberal, Democrat, or whatever it is. I don't get that whole how it works. Like, it's all about the team. And I remember when I migrated to the States and I was asked, I want to go Democrat or be a Republican or independent. It's like, of course, independent. Well, why would I go with a party where they have an agenda and it's all about their agenda? And I get it. You have the the people following the party. They show interest in certain things, so those are the things that are important. But I mean, I look at what's happening with Trump. It's like a complete disaster. People went to him because of the wars, because of free speech, for the media collusion with the government, censorship, and all that. And he promised all that, and sure enough, it's just
well, I mean,
it's a botch match.
People talk about Putin's oligarchs, but I remember when he came in there, he essentially told a lot of these oligarchs, he said, you can leave the country or you do for Russia, or you serve Russia. That's your choice. We haven't made that decision yet. So, and that's the other side of the United States historically that I the light bulb went into my head, which is that historically we were founded as an anti-imperialist nation. And that's important to the entire world, by the way.
That was very hard for me to believe when you were saying some of the things about the U.S. Because to me, coming from Egypt, I mean, it was supporting Israel full on at the time. So I never saw it like not wanting to be imperialistic, but more of having.
In my lifetime, it has not been anything but that.
Yeah.
I know, and that's why it's important, because to me, to find those critical inflection points in our history where we were absolutely opposed to an imperial behavior to anybody is a greater indictment of who we are today than somebody from, Mexico or Canada or sub-Saharan Africa saying the United States is being imperialist. It doesn't mean the same. We indict ourselves by what we have in our history. We are the greatest indictment against ourselves today. It's that mirror, right?
But it's funny how we don't see, we don't hear. Things are spelled out in front of us. But we don't repeat them, because once we acknowledge them, then they are true. So as long as we don't say those things, then we can pretend whatever we want to pretend. We're the best country in the world, and we keep pretending it. We're not seeing. It's like, what happened to Libya? People are being sold in the street, and it's because of the West, and we're not doing anything about it.
That's why I went to Russia, right? Because I said, okay, I got to go for myself, see what's going on. I mean, I spent a lot of time. I have a lot of my family's in Mexico, so I spent a lot of time doing work in Mexico. I've done political work in Europe, in Germany. Scott Ritter, among others, are going after Germany right now, rightly so.
It's crazy there.
This Fourth Reich push. Well, guess what? I was there. I did political work in West Germany and in East Germany, and I can tell you for a fact that he is absolutely correct about that. He's absolutely right. If you go into the West, they got more money. They have more money in the West compared to the East, but they have no soul. The national identity for being a citizen, for being a person in the East was so different, and they were also trashed by the West when the reunification happened. So I hope to get the opportunity. I used to work with Godfrey Benaiza, who is the former president of Uganda. did political work in Washington, D.C. with him. And our show 2 weeks ago, we had pretty much one of the foremost experts on Ethiopian economic development. I don't know if you got to see that, Yusuf.
So that's you mean when you say work on that, as in Weiner?
Well, no. I used to go to Congress on a weekly basis. I used to go to college campuses, and I would set up a little card table with some associates, and we'd have something very provocative, and we would talk about all of these different things, political things. How do you industrialize the continent of Africa? How can the United States play a role with Russia, with China, with India in ending wars and replacing the concept of war with economic development? And whatever that was going on in the news was usually the lead-in. And so we had built a movement of, we had 30, 40 college-age students around us every week. And so I started saying, hey, let's go to Congress. Let's go talk to U.S. Congress about these same things. And
so, what would be the American interest in developing other countries?
Well, in reality, America's interest is that this is what we did. We developed in the early 1800s. The display was the 1876 centennial in Philadelphia, where we had all kinds of machinery on display. You had leaders from Emperor Dom Pedro of Brazil. You had trade workers from China.
So it's more like an international effort?
The issue is international. The American Revolution was actually an international revolution against imperialism. And so it's in our interest, for our security, to see that other nations essentially have the right of self-rule, have the right to determine their own future, to determine their ability to have fresh water and running electricity and not be dependent upon some distant landowner or distant raw material owner to determine their future. That was the problem that we had. Some guy in London controlled, the trade in fur coats, which at the time of the American Revolution, you needed a fur coat. You couldn't go to REI, some outdoor store, and get a coat. Trapping and furs was making wool, iron. Our ability to make iron to sustain our own existence was critical. And the British were saying, no, you can't do that. You can only take the raw materials out of the ground, ship them to us. We will make it. You buy it. And we'll charge you to ship it to us. We'll charge you to buy it. We'll make all the money, and you will stay as a colony.
But now they don't even make it, right? They probably own the companies over there.
Yeah. The insurance, exactly. But so that's the whole point I'm saying about the United States. The United States, it's actually in our interest, for example, that every country in the continent of Africa and South America have their own nuclear power and become self-sufficient in power.
Yeah.
It's in our interest. It's in their interest.
But I mean, the reason I'm picking on that phrase, developing third world countries, it was the motto of my organization. I don't know if you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I worked for the World Bank.
Ah, boy, I have such a love-hate thing with the World Bank.
Well, I'm like
I hate it. I hate it because it is, unfortunately, World Bank, International Monetary Fund are a tool. Yeah, absolutely. However, even the World Bank admits in their own statistics, for example, right now Russia is really, depending on the measure, it's the fourth largest economy and maybe growing beyond that in the world.
Yeah.
Despite all the sanctions.
It's what open. People mention this book to me when I tell them that I worked for the World Bank. It's like, did you read Confessions of Economic Hitman?
Yes.
Have you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't like the subsequent books actually by the author.
The version 2. It was like an update. It's just but it opened my eyes. It's like, wait a minute. I mean, this is commerce is what's happening in day-to-day life. That's how it is you be in debt, you work to pay off your debt. And I take back working for the World Bank. I was like you. I'm an infrastructure engineer, dealt with that kind of stuff. So I was only involved with the plumbings of the technology side. I was not involved with operations. Operations, that's where you give the loans, negotiate. I didn't know, but that was one of the mottos: is develop third world countries.
Yeah. So I would say here's the thing: is that there was always the conditionalities and the strings attached, right?
Yes.
And that's the issue, right?
Was it Uganda or which country where the president said they wanted to hold the loan and not release it because they want them to adopt the LGBTQ policy because of human rights?
Right. Could have been Nigeria.
It's like,
it's any number of of course what very in a very sneaky way, right? The Western countries attacked China for doing what you just described in Africa with nations right now, and actually, it's not the same. And here's where it really gets interesting in my mind. China and what they have been doing with the Belt and Road Initiative is more like what the United States used to do with its infrastructure. For example, when we built the Transcontinental Railroad in the United States, then we helped to build a transcontinental railroad in Canada. We were working on it in Mexico. We pretty much built and then helped build the Trans-Siberian Railroad in Russia. There were all kinds of plans. If Franklin Roosevelt, when he was throughout the Middle East, he said, we're going to end the British control in, and he would just go through one country after the other. And Winston Churchill would get furious, and he'd say, well, what about the Philippines? An American colony. And he would say, you're right, the Philippines. He says, when this war is over, Philippines, they're going to be independent too. They're going to have their rights as a sovereign nation. And so that's the whole idea of Republican self-rule, is that you say, hey, nations actually do represent their citizens. That's what it's supposed to be. The elected officials, regardless of what side they're on, the citizen is the highest form of government. The government, therefore, reflects the needs of its citizens. And then the community among nations is one of mutual respect, not vengeance, but mutual respect. And, Europe is a mess, but you did have the 1648 Treaty of Westphalia, which I was in Munster, Germany, where they signed the treaty finally. It was a series of treaties, but that was the key place. And it was the end of the 30 Years' War officially, which was Christians and Catholics fighting, but really a much longer war in Europe. And the idea was that vengeance would not be the basis for international relations anymore, that the sovereign nation state
so this was just signed, you're saying?
1648. 1648, yeah, a lot longer ago. Europe is not like this. And the whole idea of, in fact, the concept of the benefit of the other. So rather than seeking vengeance, the idea would be that your nation's goal would be to see what you could do to improve the condition of the other nation that was your former enemy.
Yeah.
Completely different idea.
Yeah, very different than when USSR collapsed and we went there to help them.
And we raped them.
We raped them. Yeah, it's pretty sad. Pretty sad.
So here's the point, though. How can you fight against the evil if you don't know what the good is? What I just described with this Treaty of Westphalia, Henry Kissinger did not like this treaty, by the way. He hated it. He wrote his doctoral thesis against this Treaty of Westphalia. Most of the European neocons, globalists, whatever you want to say, they despise that particular treaty and body of laws that did come out of the West, because they want to return to the European concept of conquest and domination.
Barbarianism. I was just watching a movie yesterday. It was like about a barbarian queen or something like that. And I watched a lot of silly movies, but I pick on certain nuances,
Sure.
And it was like, it was the Romans, right? The barbarian war queen was basically, she helped a lot of people get rid of the occupation, or the Romans that were just taking over a lot of places. And it just dawned on me, it's how we do this with everything. We label somebody a label, barbarian, and they may have had certain culture. I'm sure we exaggerate their, how crazy they may act or whatever, because they're a barbarian, right? They're supposed to act a certain way.
We've pre-decided that they're a barbarian.
That's right. That's right. Versus a Roman. Roman, respectful,
Right. Exactly.
and it's the same thing here, where like what's happening in Gaza. We're calling those people. I can't believe till today we're witnessing what is going on, where they call it a war too. Which, what do you mean war? I mean you're bombing
Massacre,
civilians, right? Massacre. Yeah, it's slaughter. We're pretending it's a war against something, even though. The casualties and all that, it's just very obvious what is going on. But it's the barbarianism. I mean, I just, that word, I caught myself, it's like, wow, I'm calling the Western world now, they act in such a barbarian way. It's like, wait a minute, do I know even what barbarian, if it means good or bad? We've been indoctrinated. Barbarianism is a certain way that has disregard to whatever. It's like how we picture a lot of the Arabs. It's like crazy mullah. They can't think very clearly. It just, the bunch of idiots, whatever. It's very interesting how the lack of humanity, where we can see each other as, if I make you stronger, the world will become stronger because we're making each other stronger. I mean, I wish that was the case as people treating China. I mean, China doesn't have any option but to work so hard to feed the 1.4 billion people. And they're doing an amazing job. But it's like
it's incredible. It's incredible.
And we take it as they don't deserve it. We deserve better because we acted more properly and proper etiquette early on in life. We've established certain way of dealing, which some of it is evil. I mean, some of it is like it's all about tricking you with the documents and the words versus a handshake and stick to that for whatever it takes you. But I think, regardless of good or bad all this stuff is, I think what is happening now, it's like, I feel like there is a whole that layer of Epstein on top of it. I mean, you have people, maybe
it's sort of nothing new in that sense.
Maybe it's power and money. Okay, that's one thing. But blackmail, who knows what they can take on anybody, because we don't treat our humanity as it's normal. It's like, if you don't act like how others do, then you can shame them, embarrass them, do whatever, and that's what we use as a tool. So I'm wondering about Tulsi, about all of them. The reason they go pass by a certain line is they probably have a lot of stuff. I mean, you live all your life and you're given all those little baits or whatever, and you don't know when it'll be used in the future. And if they have you, they have you.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's compromise and then there's compromise, right? You can compromise in a negotiation, or you can be compromised as a person with no principle. And so I will say my view of Tulsi is that she's doing a pretty damn good job. She can't prosecute anybody, so she's releasing documents, and it's a lot of documents. 230,000 documents on the assassination of Martin Luther King, for example. She's released. Epstein. There may definitely be something there. I I feel like there is
And I
something
don't,
there.
I don't mean it as Epstein. I mean it's the whoever has controlled Epstein. Epstein is not the head; he's a tool.
Yeah,
You know,
but
so
that's my
it's
point.
across
This
the
kind
board.
of
Yeah,
this kind of thing. That's the nature of oligarchy, right?
Yeah.
Oligarchy. What's his name? Bernie Sanders. Bernie. He always likes to talk about the oligarchy, talking about who controls.
except for the
stuff.
$5 million from the pharmaceutical that he got.
You know, right? Exactly.
yeah.
So, but as a system, if you're not trying to point your finger at a particular guy, as a system, oligarchism is the problem.
Is the problem.
And again, oligarchism requires everybody be subservient, and it's above the nation. So if you think the problem is the United States, it's not really the United States. It's like there's a 1,000-pound tick that is sitting on a 30-pound dog that's been sucking its blood, and that dog, the host, pretty soon he runs out of blood. He's gonna die, and the tick dies too. So we have been sucked by this oligarchic disease also. So the issue is you have to be a surgeon. We have to eliminate the oligarchy and it's how it's infected the United States in particular, but all of Western Europe. You have to go in there and you have to cut out that, and you have to save that which is good, and you have to be, and that's where I mean that's how I see it. Let's put it that way. So there's no place that's perfect. No place is perfect.
No, I agree. I mean, I came from Egypt. I was a minority there. There, the Secret Service is called Mukhabarat. I don't know if you remember this guy. Yeah. So they have, heavy hand, and of course, being a minority, that means some very can go only so far. Being a Coptic Christian.
Yes.
Yeah. So in a way, of course, as an Egyptian, it's all Egypt is Egypt. But culturally, there is like your religion plays a role, and when the majority of the religion or the government is ruled by a different religion than you, then things can be somewhat foreign, especially if you're not given the space and freedom to practice whatever you do. So it's and of course, everything from up down. I mean, right now we have Sisi. Before that, who knows what? But it's full on, power trip. And I'm sure almost all the countries are a bit like that, with a little bit less to a little bit more.
But it's like what you said about Libya. Gaddafi was using his nation's resources for his citizens. Was he good at everything that he did?
No,
Probably not.
No.
But he did at a certain point. He basically said, you know what? These resources don't belong to Western Europe. They belong to my nation and my people. That's no different than Iran in the 1950s. I was reading about Reza Pahlavi before, even going back into the 20s and 30s. And into the 40s, some of these shahs were very pro-Hitler for whatever reason.
Yeah, and Europe too.
Yeah.
And
So, but when you got to 1950s and the nationalization of the oil for Iran, that's when we had to go and overthrow them. So, again.
But it is a tricky thing. I mean, Europe has been sort of head spearing it was a leader in the world as far as certain sophistication or modernization.
Yeah.
However, they don't have a lot of resources. So, after things get, tightened up and countries are going to say, hey, see you, we've had enough of your parasite type of treatment.
Exactly.
What are they going to do? That's going to be
what?
interesting.
Take Germany. Germany was always better when they were at peace and trading with Russia.
Yeah.
So Russia had given Germany very good deals on oil and natural gas, and Germany was the engine for all of Europe. And financial powers in Wall Street and London said, okay, we're going to make Europe pay, and we're gonna cut that off, and they're gonna buy it from the United States at a premium. So that doesn't benefit me as a citizen. That does benefit a very small elite, as we know. So what we have to, again, I just go back, we have to go, Europe, what they should do is they should immediately say, we're getting out of NATO, we're going to embrace working with Russia and China. I mean, there are plans for bringing the Belt and Road. There was something called the Strategic Triangle, bringing that into Europe. If you remember, before World War I, it was the Berlin to Baghdad Railroad, which would have brought this East-West relationship together much better. So I think the thing to do in reality is that European nations are going to have to, regain their humanity and work with those countries, the so-called global South, or BRICS, or whatever you want to say. There's a whole chunk of the world that is far more numerous. They have way more raw materials, and they'd be happy to trade, but it has to be mutually beneficial, right?
Yeah.
And
so, what would Europe have to trade?
Well, I do think that they have, scientific and technological capabilities, but I would say Germany in particular has a history of machine tool, the Mittelstand industry, which was largely small to medium-sized companies, and they were the guys that designed the tools that made everything. So I guarantee you that one part of independence is being able to make your own tools and your own machinery. But, for example, Sudan, Sudan is one of these countries that has such fertile soil that if they had water management, that one country could feed the entire continent of Africa. You have Lake Chad, which you could divert water from, and I think this is actually a project that's under work finally, divert part of the, the Zaire River, which has huge water flow. And you could expand Lake Chad. You could basically eliminate all the desertification of that northern part of the continent of Africa, thus enabling you to grow more food, populate more areas, etc. Well, what Germany has is they have the machinery capability that they could trade and teach these other people in exchange for some of their raw materials.
Yeah.
Germany could do that. Guess what? They're not doing that. China's doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You know how many Africans
Because I was thinking about Africa. They're doing a lot of
it's incredible.
They have amazing stuff they're doing, with their
high-speed
drones
rail,
and
high-speed rail, water projects, dams,
agriculture,
seaports.
drones. Okay.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So Europe, every country has some element because, somebody on the other side of the globe can make the same discovery as you do of scientific physical principle. And that's the whole point. Humans are the same in that we can discover, we can, based on whatever the scientific discovery is, we can then turn that into something that is useful, which we call a technology. That technology can then be mass produced and distributed amongst many people who learn to use it, and you can develop the quality of life of your population. And that's just a natural thing. And that can be encouraged through policy.
A policy that aims for prosperity and
I mean, China is getting
but
benefits.
That's the problem. Yeah,
they're getting benefits, but they're leaving behind really good railroads. You know, they're leaving behind a generation of African people who are now engineers. So it's a mutual benefit. That's how it has to be looked at.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be looked at like what you said in the very beginning. We got to care about each other as far as, make you better. Otherwise, it'll be really hard for everybody. I mean, we shouldn't be afraid of China. We shouldn't be afraid of, Russia or whatever, but more working together on the common threats. If it's a, you know, climate change or disease or whatever.
Yeah, nuclear power, fusion power, matter, antimatter reaction. Civilization grows based on the level of technology that we create. So we have to constantly be creating new levels of technology. So we have a big problem.
To accommodate higher population, you mean, specifically?
Or I would say turn it the other way. The more people you have, the more potential Martin Luther Kings, the more potential Putins, the more potential Marie Curies who invent or discover cures or whatever. The more minds that are at work. The universe, physical universe itself, it is self-developing. Whether you're religious or not, doesn't matter. The universe displays actually an anti-entropic behavior. In other words, it's not winding down, falling apart, dying. The universe is always creating and growing just as a natural part of its own development. We're part of that universe. We are the one part of the universe that consciously can decide to grow and develop. So therefore, as we choose to increase our technology, our what is called energy flux density, the ability to create more power output for a smaller input, then we also increase our ability to improve and grow the condition of the human species. So really what that means is we should be thinking about how do we populate the solar system with human beings. But that means we need more people here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I came to Australia, I was fascinated that the Aboriginals here are supposed to be like 40,000 years old or whatever. They're like oldest of the old, like, And then, and I was like imagining in my head, if I have a spreadsheet and have what culture was ruling, which civilization is ruling which times, right? And you're going to have, of course, the Aboriginal one overlaps all of them, So you have the Chinese, the Egyptian, the Roman, the this, the that. The Egyptians did the pyramids, the Chinese did the wall, da 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 da. What did the Aboriginals do?
I don't
Pretty
know.
much nothing. Just some arts, some whatever. But they were content in whatever place they be. I guess I'm trying to say is we may all have an idea of how the world should be, but we need to also allow people to be what they want to be. Like you said, there are so many different diverse people that it'll be really nice to let them show themselves versus being pushed to be one way or the other or being indoctrinated.
Yeah, but they have to have the freedom to make that decision themselves.
That's right. And that I was going to follow that up with something that I've mentioned before. And it's sort of, it's from Scott Ritter when he was talking about Palestine and how they are small segments, like the tribal and whatever, so they don't have a unified force. So they, forget it. If they're not a country, it's like a certain parameter. If you don't fit that parameter, then screw you, kind of thing. That's it. And I see this a general attitude from a lot of people. And the thing that we don't notice is before those young countries, they changed from barbarians to whatever, and all that is gone, and all those fresh countries, they've made so many lines in the map and broke up a lot of tribes, a lot of countries to dictate, like, oh, this is this country or this is that country. We were able to coexist in the Middle East. You have the Bedouins, the whatever. The Bedouins, they don't stay in one place. They go from one place to the other. Saudi Arabia were like 10 people at the time, whatever.
Exactly.
That was a while back. So I think those lines and those whatever we're doing to create a country or to make up a country is what destroys what is there, because we don't have much regard to the indigenous people, which, like you were saying earlier, that the people should have the highest say, or the highest what needs to happen, versus the whoever the leaders or whatever machinery goes around it. And to me, I see that vision is very lacking, from the West. Is they see a country should be, and it's like draw the line. It's like you make it even shorter with that realization. It's like it's not about lines. We were accommodating people coming from neighboring countries that we know, oh, they do this every year, whatever. Now it's like, oh, you got to have your border, you have border patrol, whatever. It's just a different world. And we're trying to make what I'm suggesting, which is, that locality, the indigenous, that's what creates the tribe. And yeah, you can have a city having a whole bunch of people together, but it matters having people you can relate to and all that. And that is down in the garbage, basically, to a whole class of people.
Yep. Well,
just imagine, like here in Australia, they have about 300 to 500 tribes. They call them mobs here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But that's just the easy talk, Aussie slang kind of thing. I'm from this mob, or I'm from that mob. But and there are about 300, 400 languages. They all talk different languages. Right. No tribe is supposed to represent another tribe. Each tribe is completely independent, and it's a clan, and they basically have their rules, they have their whatever, and that's how it used to be. It didn't used to be one country. It used to be like 300, 400 countries, because they have those little tribes. They're all independent. They all have their elders. They all have their societies. Mm-hmm. So with that kind of seeing evolution, there is maybe something to learn from that, whatever we're doing. I mean, and of course now who is under attack is the old countries, Iran, Russia, China.
Think about like Iran. Iran, it's not just that it's an old country. Actually, Western civilization wouldn't have existed without Iran.
Apparently they created chess, right?
Well, I mean,
invented
you had Ibn Sina, you had Al-Khwarizmi, so mathematics, geometry, medicine. Just critical, fundamental thinking, and for all of mankind, Iran. So this is
interesting.
It's sacred for humanity. Iran is sacred for humanity.
But maybe not for long.
We'll see. I mean, that is the thing. Is again, to quote Scott Ritter, he said, "Sometimes the only thing you can do is keep moving forward."
Yeah. But it's good to bring the realization. I mean, that's we have to keep going forward. It's hard to stay with status quo. I'm in a way I'm glad. Things started with COVID. You start opening your eye, and then from there to this war, to that war. Then you start seeing we're living different worlds. We live in a bubble. We don't have any clue what's going on around us.
We got to go travel to other places, either literally or electronically.
For
speak
sure.
to other people, learn other cultures. Egypt is a place I hope to visit someday too.
Yeah, make sure to let me know before you go. I'll see who I know
I
there.
used to visit, I can't remember her name, but there was an Egyptian diplomat that I used to visit in Washington, D.C., and she would prepare incredible cuisine.
Oh, that's the most I miss about Egypt.
Incredible cuisine.
The best cuisine, man. Amazing foods for sure. And you have to be at somebody's house to have it too. Not a,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
you
And
can't have this stuff.
she would make us these fried fish that were, I don't know. I love it. It's like Ethiopian cuisine too.
Mm.
I really find that to be very interesting as well. So anyway, that's we as far as I know, we only live once, so we have to give to the cause of mankind, and then go learn from these other places too. So
Yeah, you got to quench your passion. I think that's the most important thing in life, I guess.
yeah, I think I've become even more passionate as I have gotten older. Passion, but it's passion.
Maybe it's part of the personality, I wonder.
It's tempered with the fact that I'm okay with being wrong.
Yeah.
If somebody says I'm wrong and they show me I'm wrong, I'm like, okay, I don't like it, but
yeah, I mean,
learned-
I notice you have the modesty to give the room or space that there could be, you know, you're not know-it-all, or it could be a different angle. Some people talk, this is the way it is, and you can see it in the personality as well.
yeah. Well, you want things to be absolute, but in fact, very few things are absolute. Gravity is absolute, however.
Yeah. No, definitely. There's so many different shades of gray, and there are so many different nuances to almost everything. And you know, it's. I think it's good to, which I notice you do, is you know, when people speak, it's their understanding, it's their, you know. It's not knocking it down with a better idea or with a whatever. You know, it's a more.
I mean, if it's a better idea, I don't mind adopting it myself.
Yeah.
You know, it's knowledge can be universal that way. So, well, listen, my friend, I
Gotta
to go, and it's very good to talk to you. And,
yeah, same here.
How often do you get back to Egypt?
I haven't been since '94, and it was for work. It was 3 days for the World Bank at the time. Yeah.
Nice. I'm sure that something happened interestingly when you worked at the World Bank. It's all of these institutions are not all automatically rotten. They're not.
No, people. I mean, you know, it all depends where. You know, that's with anything in the whole country. It depends. What are you doing? You know, are you ethically in the right place in what you do or not? You know, and it can be anywhere. But I think those big organizations, all the Western, you know, they're ruled by Western world, and I think that's what the
It's frustrating.
Global South is. I think they're gonna be needing some UN. Fixing, and you know, from ICC fixing, ICJ fixing. I mean,
the UN has to grow some balls.
Yeah, well,
because I mean, look at I didn't realize it, but there are a lot of what is it now? I just posted something about this because you know, Macron in France has said that France is going to in September at the next UN. I guess they're going to go ahead and recognize Palestine as a state. And he said that France will recognize Palestine as a state. He said the urgent need to end the war in Gaza and alleviate the humanitarian crisis is the reason. What I didn't know is that as of March this year, 147 out of 193 members of the UN, so over 75%, have recognized Palestine as a sovereign state. I did not know that. But France doing that is interesting because most of Europe has not. Spain has, and I think Ireland has. So, that's fascinating. Despite France.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad things that France still intends to do, but still, that's good. So you got to recognize what's good,
Yeah. It's a bit hard. I mean, I think we're trying to find excuses and making reasons not to look and see if this is a genocide, and it's amazing to me. And you come with somebody like Russia, and they're like, any little thing, got you on that. It's like you took children, whatever. It's like, and we don't want to hear you. We don't want to hear any proof you have. We don't want to hear. It's so twisted. It is just to me.
Yeah.
It's. I agree that the goods and the bads in all organizations in a way. But policy-wise, it's who's controlling them. And it boils down to manipulation of narratives and control, and you have like the ties into the Epstein's, the this, the that, and
it's
all, yeah. But till then, there's nothing. Yeah, we can just
keep going
share
forward.
knowledge.
That's it.
Thank you so much for
it's good talking.
showing. Yeah, and anytime. Be good.